and my experience of him extremely limited, they say you can learn most about a person when they're under pressure. I only knew Jerry under the heaviest of pressures. To be honest, we talked and shared more in those 3 times together than I ever thought 2 perfect strangers would talk and share. And I believe that had more to do with the man himself than the moment he was in. You only needed a few moments with Jerry to see and feel his commitment to family, his deep valuing of relationships, and that he was a good man. Jerry spoke glowingly of his 3 boys. Story after story of escapades and times together. Where each one was, he would always tell me what they were doing and how proud of them he was and how wonderfully different and individual they all were. And the full glances that he and Danette would share. The sentences communicated without a word ever being spoken. Something personally, as I spent time with Jerry and Danette, that greatly challenges me in my marriage. In the midst of all of his accolades and career accomplishments, there's no question in Jerry's mind, his supreme achievement, without a doubt, was the oneness he had with his wife and his boys. Communicating that even every time I came over, he would ask, "How are your kids? What are they doing today?" And he never met them, but he cared. The only thing that remotely rivaled, I believe, Jerry's commitment and investment to his family was all of you and every person that crossed his path. I could see that Jerry saw everyone. All people mattered, it seemed, all the time. I've not met many of you, but I'm sure I now have a story deposit of all of you because Jerry loved you, and so he remembered you and he spoke of you. And through our times together, I'm sure all of you can attest to as well, what proved present to me of Jerry was that indeed he was a good man. And I don't mean that comparatively as if that kind of thing mattered to him, because it certainly didn't, and it wouldn't matter to him. I mean a good man in the way the creation poem displays the Creator's declaration over new earth in the book of Genesis in the Scriptures. Each time God stops and surveys his handiwork, he says, "And it is good. It is good. It is good." This word translated to good for us actually means to be able to be productive, excellent for growth, meant for fruitfulness. I can think of no other way to describe Jerry's life and legacy other than good in terms of fruitfulness, as I gotten to know his sons and spoken with his wife and met many of you and just seen what has emanated from his life, a life of fruitfulness. I'm grateful to Danette that she shared Jerry with me these past 18 days, and I do look forward, as I'm sure all of you do as well, to carrying him into my future days. His commitment to family, his deep valuing of relationships, and the challenge that we can all be good. At this time, the family invites you to listen to a chosen song for some reflective space about Jerry's life, his legacy, his impact and influence on your life.
When I am down and oh my soul so weary, when troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence sit a while with me. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. Raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. You raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on stormy seas. And I am strong when I am on your shoulders. Raise me up to more than I can be. You raise me up to more than I can be.
At this time, I'd like to invite a friend, David Peebles, to come and share and reflect on Jerry's life and legacy.
Friends of Jerry Allen, someone we have loved for short periods of time, sometimes we have known for a lifetime, like his boys, but we all love Jerry Allen. Jerry, our friendship and association has endured for a long time. And although we hired a lot of great people, known elsewhere as employees, but with us, every human being working for Ferguson was an associate. Early on your cooperation in every endeavor we ever undertook, whether it be corporate, personal, or civic, these were your defining moments. There was only one Jerry Allen. I remember all too well coming down to the old First and Merchants building, and somehow, after speaking to you as a young banker, I knew the success and contribution that you would make would be a real asset to our fledgling organization, and that with hard work coupled with wild dreams, we could outdistance anything that ever had been accomplished in our industry, and that is still true to this day, thanks to people like you. Yes, we worked long hours with the mantra, work as if it depends on us, pray as if it depended on Almighty God. We sold ourselves as an up-and-coming supply house that would make the lives of customers and associates a joy to experience, but the best is yet to come. We dressed with respect, and our conduct and demeanor was to be second to none. This was not difficult, but rather we found it a pleasure. Jerry, I remember some doubting Thomases saying that when the challenge was afforded you to broaden your horizons from the plumbing supply business to the heating and air conditioning business in our acquisition of Maryland Lyon Conklin, some did not think you were the man for the job. You gave reason to them and an opportunity to apologize many times for the job that you did in a business that in the early days we didn't profess to be experts in. Every dream coupled with hard work and stamina to make it happen became a reality under your leadership. Your personal integrity has been legend all your life. With the raising of your children and your attention to family, much less your civic pride, evidenced in large part to Riverside Hospital, though never confined to that. You brought a smile to so many with your genuine caring, and it extended to your retirement. Even I was a doubting Thomas on occasion. While you never professed to have all the answers, you and others had to prove to me that we were staying on track with the idea of being the best at every turn. You brought a smile to so many in your genuine caring, and you encouraged participation among all people, others at a meeting or any other occasion. Our friendship extended into your retirement, which doesn't happen infrequently, but it's something that I value tremendously. After I retired, we took a few day trips together and talked almost continuously about the meaning of life well lived as we passed this way. And even during the latest challenges, you could never decide whether yesterday was the greatest day or if it wasn't even better today. Yes, Jerry Allen, that's you. In this difficult time in the world, goodness in this old world is more important than ever, not only in our personal life, but in our corporate sharing endeavors. I mentioned friends for life, and you mention that more often as you age. And you have certainly filled that role for me and many others, much less the hundreds of friends you have made on this earthly journey. We laughed about you buying groceries and cooking dinners in your retirement, and your affectionate respect for Danette in keeping you both in shape. And keeping herself and you in shape was her major goal in life. Health, health, health. Congratulations, Danette. You walked the dog 3 miles a day and played golf as long as you could. But then you got to the point that it was better watching your sons or your golfing friends play, and you stood by. but you never lost that zest for life in any way. On one hand, it was a challenge because deep down, I knew a day without Jerry would be a day so many of us would experience a great loss. We are not crying, but thinking about it all. We are laughing with tears in our eyes in memories unexpected. We know you have succeeded in what makes this game of life a happy time to remember. Mary and I and all of your wonderful associates send our unequivocal love, praying for life ahead with love and gratitude to God for the great life we have shared. Danette, God bless you and your sons, Jay, Brian, and Michael, sharing the respect that all of us have and continuing to influence one another by the inspiration of a life well lived by Jerry. Yes, Jerry, on this earthly journey, you were not satisfied to talk the walk. No, you, as a leader, walked the walk and made your dreams reality with a zest for helping others, sometimes surpassing our wildest dreams. God bless you all for making a difference today in the life of one who meant so much on his earthly pilgrimage. A dream is a dream is a dream until we make it reality. Jerry, you painted the mural on the horizon. May God be the glory for great things he has done. Amen.
We'd like to offer one more song for some space and reflection at this time.
How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. It was grace that tore my heart to feel, and grace my fears. How precious endless toils and snares we have already come. 'Twas grace hath borne us safe thus far, and grace will lead us home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright, shining as the sun, we've known this day to sing God's praise. Then when we first begun, amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. 'Cause I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Was blind, but now I see.
As we draw these few moments we've shared together in reflecting on Jerry, we will hear from his three sons, beginning with Brian.
I'm going to do my best to get through this. I'm Brian, Jerry's middle son. Definitely responsible for a few gray hairs. And somehow I got chosen to go first, even though being in the middle. Thanks, Mike. I can sit here and tell you all about my father's accomplishments, which we, are fully aware of. But first and foremost, he was an awesome father, really was. A major influence in my life, probably the most influential part of my life. Really shaped who I was and who I am today. And I think it's true for Jay and Michael as well. A huge impact. But of all the things that I can share about him or reflect upon him, it's his sense of humor that was something special, and I think we all know about that. He had a way about him. He was a great communicator, and I think it was because of how he came across. The humor that he had was just so natural and never forced. Just came across as being real. We'd have to warn people about his humor sometimes. If you weren't prepared for it, it could come across in certain ways. There were many servers at restaurants that had to deal with that. Oh man, I think we have some stories coming up about that. I don't know. Danette had to endure a lot, his humor all the time. And of course, he passed it on to Michael, Jay, and I, and in our own ways, we have it within us. It's something that he really instilled in us. And Jay, being probably one of the funniest people I know, definitely something that Dad gave you. And then Michael, with his names, he always likes to come up with unique names for people, and it's in the way that he presents it. It definitely I see Dad in you as well. Man, there's so many moments where, we were just sitting around the dinner table. Danette, with the four of us, the four boys, she called us, because Dad was really a boy as well. Totally outnumbered. And we would just feed off each other. One sarcastic comment after another, outdoing each other one after another. And she would just shake her head and be like, "You boys." Luckily, Michael brought Holly into our family to help balance it out, give Danette a little bit more support. Unfortunately, Holly and Michael have brought Alex into the family, and she hasn't begun talking so much yet, but I can already see it in her eyes and the way she smirks, that she has Jerry's humor in her already. Even before speaking her first true words or sentences, I can already tell that she has it. And then that's the thing that I'll probably think about the most day to day. When I think about my father, it's just, how fun he really was and how he made everybody laugh. And I hope everybody can remember all the good times and the stories, and I'm sure there's tons of them that y'all share and hope to continue to share about him. But he was really something special, and that's pretty much what I wanted to say. Jay.
Thank you, Brian. The three of us, of course, wanted to speak to you today. None of us knew what each of us was going to say, but probably see a theme. I also want to talk a little bit about my father's humor, and Brian mentioned it. Sometimes you had to be warned about his humor, and so I'm going to share an older story. When I was a younger kid, it was in the late 70s. I don't know the exact year, but I'm figuring that I was about 6 years old. Brian would have been about 2. And Michael was not quite with us yet, but on the way some few years later. And at that time, we lived in the Lansdowne neighborhood in Newport News. And Lansdowne was a relatively new community. It had a neighborhood pool. And as part of the neighborhood association, my father had actually been the pool manager for a period of time. And that neighborhood had tons and tons of kids at that time, and that pool was a mad scene. That was the place to be seen. And of course, with that, there were rules there at the pool. Certainly, like any pool, no running on the pool deck. You could get away with a small warning on that. But there was one rule that you could not violate, and that was being a kid getting in the water during the adults-only swim. For those of you that aren't aware of how that is, the adults-only swim, for the last 10 minutes of every hour, the lifeguard would blow the whistle. And as a kid, you had to get quickly and in an orderly fashion, get out of the pool. And then after 10 minutes, lifeguard would blow the whistle, and then chaos could continue. The punishment for violating that rule was pretty harsh. You had to sit in a timeout underneath the lifeguard stand in front of everybody, could not talk. And kids were harsh. They'd point, laugh at you. Parents shake their heads saying, "Boy, that one's going down the wrong path." Talk of the town. And I was absolutely horrified of ending up with that punishment. And I made it well known I would not be a person that had to sit underneath that lifeguard chair. So one summer afternoon, my father and I went down to the pool. It was jam-packed. And his sense of humor, warn you, he thought it would be funny to pick me up and throw me in the pool in the middle of the adults-only swim. I immediately frantically tried to get out of the pool, hoping that I could get out before any lifeguards saw me. But it was too late. I heard the whistles, and I had a complete meltdown at that point. At the injustice, I didn't do it. It's not my fault. But of course, who are they going to believe? I didn't do it. Yeah, right. So I braced for my punishment, and when the lifeguard went to I guess, do the whistle for the general population could get back in the pool. Jerry Allen had to sit underneath the lifeguard chair in a timeout. It was quite a spectacle, and as a young kid, all the kids were pointing and laughing at him, carrying on, couldn't believe there was no such thing that ever happened before, probably ever happened again. And I'm sure the parents there were chuckling, maybe nervously, because this may have set a bad precedent. Have to follow the rules too. And I know when he was sitting there, I'm sure he was amused himself at the scene he'd created at the pool. And for me, it seemed like a little bit of an eternity. I started feeling bad for him. I say, okay, he's done his time. Let him go. But honestly, in retrospect, it probably was only about 5 minutes or so. Thank you. Let me share that.
All right, you guys did great. So I was a little nervous about getting up here, but have some feelings I do want to share. So I appreciate everybody coming. I think everybody that's here, the company you keep says a lot about you. So when you meet a lot of the people that are here, we really appreciate that, and it says a lot about him as a person. So the main thing that I wanted to get across is how lucky that I feel to have Jerry as a dad. So what I guess there's a number of points that I want to make, a couple little small stories. Hopefully we can share a few laughs. But I really want to get into who he was and how he brought us together. A couple friends, and yesterday I was called one close friend of mine and one close friend of his, and they both kind of said the same thing but in different ways. The first friend said, you hit the jackpot in terms of who your dad was. And I said, yeah. I said, I agree. That's something that I really wanted to get across. And the second friend, who was a good friend of his, with work through Ferguson, said, having Jerry Allen's a dad, it's like starting at third base. So I was able to, I'm gonna grab a tissue. Yeah, thank you. So, so essentially said the same thing there, and that really hit home. So I think what I would like to do first is kind of talk a little bit about, who he was, what made him him. And I think if you a number of times heard him say, if Jerry, tell me a little bit about yourself, what would he say? And there was one answer. It said he grew up, went to 14 different schools by the time he graduated high school. And you think about, what does that do to a person? That sounds like something that a young person would need to overcome. But I think what he got out of that was the ability to connect with people wherever he went. A unique ability to connect with people. Even in recent years, in his retirement, everywhere we went, if it was the grocery store, if it was a restaurant, if it was an Orioles game, there was somebody there that knew him. And he knew their names. He knew a little bit about them. It was unbelievable. Even at the end of a little after Christmas time, all of us were home, and he decided that he wanted to make us dinner, beef stew, And in order for him to do that, to get all the ingredients we want, we had to go to 2 different grocery stores. And both stores, it's like the cashiers or the guy behind the meat counters. Oh, hey, how you doing? They were all friends, and I think that speaks a lot to him. But I think that that really stemmed from his genuine interest in people and his love for people. And I think that comes across. And I think people remember when they feel that way. One of the places that you see these relationships was with his friends and associates at Ferguson. And a long time ago, I remember back, when I was really young, that Ferguson people were family, and that was, and they still are, and always will be. I think from the outside looking in, you might think it's the glamorous, glamorous, the glamorous job of selling toilets. But I don't think that's what brought them all together. It was the people and the relationships that they had. Everyone is family. I took a summer job at a Lyon Conklin location in Capitol Heights, Maryland, after my senior year of high school. I don't know why I did that. I had a job at a country club. It was great, but I decided to punish myself. I worked in the warehouse. I rode with some different drivers, and one of them, his name was Jay Brodus, and he was the union steward, and he knew my dad well, and which was funny because in a sense they were kind of adversaries because they would negotiate with the union, but they had a lot of respect for each other. And then he would also ask me about how's Big Mike doing, how's Bobby doing. He knew all these people. And I think at the time, I thought that was normal. But when you get out and you kind of work for a while and you're out in the world, you realize it's not. So I even thought of one time that we were on the way to dinner as a family, and we had to stop by Ferguson and Newport News so Dad could play a guy in horse. They had the basketball hoop out in the yard, and so that was a really unique story. And I think one relationship, there was one particular customer named Mike Klein who I actually spoke with last night, who I think by all accounts is probably the most difficult person to work with as a customer for a lot of people. I told him that my take was that he had chewed up and spit out a number of Ferguson folks before he met Jerry Allen, and he agreed. But Mike said that he was the most fair man that he'd ever worked with, and he said that he mentored him to treat his clients the same way. He said that Dad thought of his family more than anyone in their business, and that he was always honest. That was the thing that he really hit on, was that it was honesty. He said he never lied to me, which to Mike is important. And I think Mike's a great friend. I knew he would love to be here today, but was unable to. But I did, it was important to speak to him last night. So I think to go from there, I think one of the things that he would always say is do what is right. So the being honest, do what's right, whether if it's not easy or convenient, but that's what needs to be done. If we would go to a restaurant and something would not end up on our bill that was supposed to be on our bill, it was, come here, you forgot to charge me for this. If he got home from the grocery store and there was something that was missing from the receipt, he would go back to pay for it. There's a lot of stories like that about him, and I think that the do what's right is something that he said over and over and over. Another saying that he repeated often was, "It'll feel better when it quits hurting." We've all heard that. It'll feel better when it quits hurting. You know, your kid, you fall down, it'll feel better when it quits hurting. So, and he lived that. After his first surgery, when he was diagnosed, like the next day, the rule was you're going to be able to go home as soon as you can. When walk, if they had a list of things, you had to walk a few laps, you had to do a few things, and so he's like, "All right, I can walk." So we got him up. We did our first lap, and we said, "All right, let's keep going." And then, before too long, Buddy showed up, and then the three of us were walking laps around the floor. And it was almost like, hey, nurses, look at me. I'm fine. I'm ready to get out of here. And he almost had this little, kind of a strut walk that he would do if he would make a birdie putt on the golf course or was looking to be funny. And he didn't do that, but that's what it felt like. It was like, look at me. I can walk. So that was him getting us out of there. And then the next thing was he was still making tea times from the hospital. Even when they said, "Hey, you need to go home and call hospice," he said, "No, I think I'm going to call James River. Mike, what time do you want to play?" So that was really important. But the golf was an opportunity to spend time with family, and that's one thing that we did a lot, in recent months, but always have. We spent a lot of time together playing golf. Growing up, even sometimes when we would come down on Thursday night planning to work on Friday, Holly reminded me of a time when I was in his office, which has a glass door, and I was working. I was on the phone, and he was like standing at the door, and obviously he had this little piece of paper, and it was like tea time, 11 o'clock, question mark. So we played golf that day. I think the other thing that's important is, his relationship with my mom and taking care of her over the years in a way that is just unbelievable. It's that Southern gentleman, chivalry that doesn't really exist in the way that it did, or that it did then and when with him. So that was very important to him. Even with Holly, when she first was coming over, when we first started dating, and he would see that, the various things that Dad would do for our mom, and he would make a joke about it. He'd say, "You know what? She's seeing this. This isn't going to be easy. Setting expectations really high." And but I'm thankful for that. But that kind of hits a little bit on a sense of humor. There's many stories. Obviously, Brian and Jay have shared a little bit. But there were just a couple that really stuck out to me. Excuse me, I need a tissue. Sorry, thanks, dude. Yep, we go too. One of them came when around the time that Ferguson acquired Lion Calk and we moved to Maryland, and it was a story about him introducing himself to the folks at the West Virginia location. He thought it was a good idea to start with a joke. Meeting these new people that he was going to be, going to be the boss, and so that joke started with, I was very sorry to hear about the governor's mansion in West Virginia, and the people were like, governor's mansion? What happened? He said, "Yeah, I heard it burnt down." And they're like, "Well, we didn't hear that." And he said, "Yeah, it burnt down all the way to the axles." And needless to say, I don't think he got that many laughs. But I think they figured out soon thereafter that he was that he had their best interest in mind. Brian mentioned a number of servers that kind of got to see his sense of humor, and there's kind of one joke that happened numerous times to all of us. But I remember one time in particular that we were out, and I think we had a kind of a young female waitress, and Brian might have been paying her a little bit of attention, and he ordered another like a second Coke. He was probably early teens, 13, 14 years old. Ordered a Coke, and Dad kind of stopped and looked at the waitress, looked at him. He said, "You'll wet the bed." I think, and we all got that. We all got that one. It was like his favorite thing to do. I think he is probably still recovering from that. I guess kind of the other funny thing that he did over recent years was he was asking Holly and I, when am I going to have a grandbaby? I'm getting old. I need a grandchild. And when we were finally really fortunate enough to bring her into the world, he was just couldn't get enough of her. And I don't think any of us can. And she has really been an amazing kind of light in our life, and something that we needed over the past year and a half. So I think with that, I'd like to close by saying a couple things that he said recently. Wasn't really big on kind of philosophy or advice, but just a couple things that he did say that I would share. One of them was, you need to make a decision, and if you need to make a decision, you need to make it and stick with it. If it doesn't work out, then you can change course and live with the consequences. But the only thing worse than making a bad decision is making no decision at all. And I think that's something that did him great things in his professional career. The other saying, something that he said very recently, was take care of your family, your business, and love everyone. And I think love was a very important theme that we had discussed recently, in the love of our family, all for each other. And I think I had a conversation with Dave Sharp last night, and he said that his life has been much better because he knew Jerry Allen. And I think a lot of us feel that way, and thank you all for being here.
Before I release the family, they're going to go to the lounge, and that's where you can say your goodbyes in a moment. But I will just come alongside what the sons were saying. I spent about 40 minutes on the phone with Target Online because of Jerry Allen. We ordered something, and it said it came. It never came. And then I sat with Jerry one day, and he was telling me story after story. And I came home, and lo and behold, that package that they said had arrived had not arrived. It had arrived, and they had, credited our account. And so I spent almost 40 minutes with Target Online to say, hey, how do I pay back? Can I return it to the store? This is the wrong, I can't keep these 7-year-old leggings for my daughter anymore because of Jerry Allen. May we all spend more time trying to track down honesty in our lives. So at this time, I'd like to release the family, and so they'll make their way to the lounge, and you can say your goodbyes there in a few moments. I think we all need to give a round of applause to Henley. Yeah? I feel like Henley's parents need to go buy a lottery ticket while the getting's good. I spoke too soon. There it is. Well, as they make their way out, I just again want to say thank you so much on behalf of Danette and the boys for coming and being with us here. And I just want to encourage and exhort you all, again, grateful for your presence here today, but in the coming days as well. Please work to make yourself available for Danette, for Brian, for Jay, for Michael, as they step into a pretty large void, as all of you all can attest to. Let me pray. Father, we thank you again for your Spirit with us in this place. We thank you for the opportunities that we've all had to step into, enjoy the life and the legacy of Jerry, what he has spoken into us, what he's challenged us towards. And so, God, we ask that we would continue to step into that life and legacy, to those mantras, to the humor, to those hopes of honesty for those around us. Help us to step into that. And we, once again, thank you for the opportunity to know Jerry and to be affected by him. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you again so much for coming.